Into Saturday and Sunday, we've got that lingering cloud across many areas, but it will be mostly dry.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
A camper van and cash could be yours in our very latest Great British Giveaway. You could be driving away in this brand new Benavan 122. This 2026 model, worth over £67,000, comes with all of the mod cons you'd expect. And that's not all, as you'll also get an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash to boost your bank account this year. For a chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
Our bases have already been attacked. He is catching arrows rather than stopping the archer.
Rule Britannia. Britannia once ruled the waves. In World War II, the Royal Navy had more than 1,400 ships and hundreds of thousands of sailors. Today, the fleet is around 63 ships and personnel of just over 30,000. What has happened? Why does Britain no longer have a navy? And why, with British air bases being attacked by Iran, have we become incapable of defending our seas? Also tonight.
Genuine problem in this asylum system, and we need someone to sort it out.
The Home Secretary has imposed an emergency brake on student visas from nations with suspiciously high numbers of asylum applicants. Prospective students from Afghanistan, Cameroon, Sudan and Burma will not be able to apply for study visas after a near six-fold rise in nationals seeking asylum. Is Labour finally getting a grip on the exploitation of Britain's porous migration system? Plus,
any government that has high taxation is giving itself more powers and the people less.
the fiscal event phenomenon strikes again as good news one day turns into bad news the next. Rachel Reeves lauded optimistic forecasts in yesterday's spring statement, but today the figures show Britain is heading for the highest tax burden in its history. As the late and great Baroness Thatcher said, The problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money. And
hereby declare that Hannah Catherine Spencer is duly elected Member of Parliament for the Gorton and Denton constituency.
a bombshell new poll has put the Green Party ahead of Labour for the first time as the Conservatives continue to trail behind Reform. As the left and right voting blocs remain remarkably consistent, is the traditional party landscape experiencing a fundamental change? Or is this simply a mid-term protest vote that will retreat before the next election? State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most preternaturally perspicacious panel, Reform's Home Affairs spokesman Zia Youssef and the political consultant and former Labour candidate Kevin Craig. As always, let me know what you think, mailmog at gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Tatiana Sanchez.
Jacob, thank you and good evening. The top stories. The US Defense Secretary says a US submarine sank an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean with a torpedo. Pete Hegseth didn't name the ship, but earlier Sri Lanka's Deputy Foreign Minister said at least 80 people were killed in the strike. He said the vessel was returning to Iran from a port in eastern India. Meanwhile, Mr Hegseth also says America is winning without mercy, adding the US will have control of Iran's skies in under a week. His comments come as the war in the Middle East is now in its fifth day. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has said in a speech this evening ground troops are not part of the plan for the Iran operation at this time. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it's launched a broad wave of strikes in both Lebanon and Iran, focusing on targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in Beirut and the Iranian terror regime in Tehran. This is footage of 91st Division troops in forward defensive positions in southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer says letting the US use UK bases and British jets shooting down drones in the Middle East is the special relationship in action, while hanging on to the President Trump's latest words about not dealing with Winston Churchill are not. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage reacted to Donald Trump's comments about the Prime Minister.
He's quite right to say he's no Churchill. There's a complete breakdown now in relationships between our government and the American administration. And, you know, Donald Trump does forgive people, but not quickly. And I suspect this breach is going to be unmendable.
The Iranian ambassador Sayed Ali Mousavi has been summoned by the UK government. Foreign Office Minister Chris Elmore told the Commons today. It says US bombers are set to strike Iran from British bases soon, according to officials, with bombers expected to arrive at RAF Fairford. The officials also said Iran will run out of ballistic missiles in the coming days if they continue to fire at the current rates. Throughout the briefing, Western officials were keen to stress that we should not rule anything out regarding possible action by US allies. Meanwhile, some British nationals stranded in the Middle East are due to be flown home from Oman this evening on a government flight with more planned. The flight will depart the country's capital, Muscat. It's available for British nationals, their partners and children under 18 with a valid travel document. Elsewhere, Scottish Labour MP Joni Reid says she has never seen anything to make her suspect her husband has broken any law after her spouse David Taylor was arrested on suspicion of spying for China along with 2 other men. Earlier, the Metropolitan Police said men aged 39, 43 and 68 had been arrested in London and Wales as part of a counter-terrorism policing investigation under the National Security Act. The Met added there is no imminent or direct threat to the public and all 3 suspects are being held in custody. Ms Reid, who represents East Kilbride and Strathaven, said she's not part of her husband's business activities. And household energy bills are forecast to rise by 10% this summer. The warning comes from specialist Cornwall Insight as natural gas costs soar on wholesale markets due to the war in Iran. While the regulator Ofgem has already ruled on a 7% reduction in the typical annual dual-fuel bill from April, what's happening on financial markets right now will help determine the cap's level from July. Cornwall Insight's latest price predictions see a £160 lift in bills. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in an hour. Now it's back to Jacob.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. In 1935, George V celebrated his Diamond Jubilee and he reviewed the fleet. And as he looked out from Spithead, he could see ships as far as the eye could see. There was an enormous fleet. Britannia genuinely ruled the waves. But now, the reduction we've seen is extraordinary. In 1945, well, I accept that's at the end of the war, there were 1,400 ships and 700,000 personnel. By 1990, this had dropped to 160 ships and 63,000 personnel, and now it's pretty much halved again in terms of personnel, and ships even more so. 33,000 people, 63 ships. And this has had a terrible effect on our ability to project power, because not only is it the number of ships, it's also the powerful ships. So 240 destroyers, frigates and escort ships in 1939, down to 30 in 2010. 2025, 13. 13 destroyers, frigates and escort ships. What are we left with now? What is the 2026 fleet? 2 aircraft carriers, neither of which is currently in action, 6 destroyers, 7 frigates, 6 attack submarines, of which I believe not one is in service at the moment, 8 offshore patrol vehicles, and 3 survey ships and icebreakers. I mean, Alfred the Great is credited with establishing the Navy in 897 in response to Danish raids, when he had boats that were oared by 60 men. Nowadays, we'd be quite pleased if we had a boat oared by 60 men. It might be more than we currently have that is operational. And this is absolutely shameful. The whole of our island story has depended on us being able to defend ourselves, to stop people invading, to have a navy that could keep the coastline safe. All our great figures in history, Edward III at Sluice, Henry V reinvigorates the navy, Henry VIII is famed for establishing the Royal Navy, Elizabeth, her victory over the Armada, then you go through to the great victory of all time, Trafalgar in 1805, all dependent on the United Kingdom as it had become by 1805, England in earlier cases, having a great navy. And now, what do we have? We have a handful of ships, most of which seem to be under almost constant repair. And who is responsible? Well, absolutely the politicians are responsible, and I must accept my share of blame for that, because I supported Conservative governments that saw the Navy continue to decline. But it's not just the politicians, it's the Ministry of Defence, it's the administrators, it's those in charge. It may even be the companies getting orders in procurement processes. Something is rotten with the state of our Navy, that we have had to allow the French to go and protect Cyprus, with which we have a treaty obligation to provide defence, is shameful. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. It just is not the position that this great island nation should be in, when our whole history is dependent on being able to show power across the seas. And now we have a sort of semi-pacifist government that promises spending on defence but fails to deliver. So the prospect of it improving is limited, but the need for it to improve is essential to the safety, the well-being of our nation, and the safety of the nation is the first duty of any government. As ever, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com, but I'm very pleased now to be joined by the former Royal Navy officer, James Gator. James, thank you very much for coming in. What has gone wrong, and who should we be blaming, and how do we put it right?
Well, it's a multifactorial issue, Jacob, and an issue that has been long in the making. The simple fact is that the state of the Royal Navy is not an electoral issue, and I'm sure you'd say very much that in your time in government. And as such, there are many other things, the state of welfare, the state of the health service and education, that come before what is happening in defence, let alone in the Royal Navy, in the minds of the electorate. So I think the first point we must discuss is why it is that in the long history of this island, the people of it don't recognise that their island story depends on a Royal Navy and has for so long depended on one.
Yes, indeed. That going back hundreds of years, the ability to defend ourselves has been based on the Navy, actually more so than the Army, that the Army doesn't come into play until people have actually got here. And Has politics intervened in the procurement? Because there was a lot of discussion about whether the aircraft carriers were being ordered simply to provide work in Gordon Brown's constituency or nearby, or were they the right thing to do at the time?
Well, politics always gets involved in procurement. If we were just procuring on cost, then we would be procuring outside of the United Kingdom. So it's very clear that to be a G7 nation, to be a self-respecting defence power, you need to be making your own steel. We have found ourselves in a position where we have one government-supported facility that does such a thing. So political involvement in the construction of ships is a reality of our time. The fact is, however, that we aren't producing enough ships. We haven't been producing enough ships. We haven't been producing enough material of all sorts. And the process by which we procure material is extraordinarily complicated, mired in competition, mired in process, and certainly not swift enough, particularly in the technical space, let alone when procuring hard assets such as vessels.
And what's gone wrong with the ships we have procured? Because I believe all our attack submarines are undergoing repair.
Well, that's not strictly true. We have HMS Anson, she is currently in Australia.
But I saw has been having some minor repairs for 8 days. According to Daily Mail, which is my source for this. You know better than I do.
Be careful with the Daily Mail.
I will defer to your expertise. But it was saying even that in Australia is having some repairs at the moment. So we may have 1 out of 6. We've got one of our Type 45 destroyers that has been under repair for 9 years. What's going wrong?
Well, the simple truth is that we have 6, officially we have 6 Type 45 destroyers, but in reality we have 2. In January it was declared we have 3 operational, but in reality we have 2, and of those 2, one of which has, I am led to believe, a certification issue with its hull such that it wouldn't have enough sea time available without an exception granted by the Secretary of State to make it to Cyprus. And that leaves us with 1. The one you see at UHAF, the ammunitioning buoy, preparing to deploy to defend our sovereign territory in Cyprus.
And HMS Dragon still has scaffolding on it because it was itself undergoing repair.
Indeed. She was in a fleet maintenance period until about 5 minutes ago.
But this is hopeless. It's the disorganisation, the current disorganisation, must be the responsibility of the Admiralty. Surely they should be able to have a programme of ensuring their ships are ready. Because I saw that the budget on the submarines repair hadn't been paid, hadn't been used, that the politicians had provided the money, but perhaps there aren't the skills, perhaps it's a failure of administration, but something's going wrong beneath the political failures to concentrate on the Navy.
On the specific matter of submarines, I'll have to ask you to defer to somebody who's got more specific expertise. But let me just go back one step. I spent the vast majority of my professional career in naval communications, defending the reputation of the naval service here at home and abroad. And, you know, the situation we find ourselves in at the present time is as much a reputational issue, not only for the Navy, not only for the Ministry of Defence, but for the nation-state as a whole. Yes. It's a reputational issue that we have to scrabble around to find an available warship, let alone that we haven't thought about deploying her in advance. You ask what's going wrong. It's very hard to pin that down to one specific thing. It's very clear that there is institutionalised decline within the service. This is exemplified in numerous ways, but over the course of my 20 years as a naval officer, I spent a huge amount of time being told that we had to endure in-year savings, we had to make cuts in a given point in time, and the story of my career, so far as the number of hulls is concerned, is one of decline, as you pointed out. 32 frigates and destroyers in 2000, and here we are with only 2, in fact 1, available to deploy at any given time, and no capital ships, with the exception of HMS Anson, east of Suez.
And so how do you put it right? If you had the money, would you be able to use the money to put it right in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years?
There needs to be a root and branch change in how the system operates. We need to improve how we recruit, but most importantly, retain personnel, quality personnel. We need to have more hulls. We need to develop the Type 31, Type 26, and that is in progress, but it has to happen more swiftly. We need wider capabilities. We need to improve how the RFA, the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, retain their personnel. Look, just this week, RFA Argus, a ship that has served since the Falklands conflict, paid off. That is our only primary casualty receiving facility. We have no hospital ship anymore. It has gone. The replacement is long in the coming. So how do we resolve this? Well, we have to be much swifter and smarter at procurement. In my professional life, I deal with clients who produce materiel of all sorts. And they, for example, British technological companies, submitting products for services that we need as a country. For example, training fast jet pilots. It is an obvious need. We need 40 of those every year. We manage to train 15, right? 15. And yet the system can't be swift enough to say, well, just get on with it, as Nelson would have done.
Yeah. James, thank you very much for explaining it. It is very worrying. Coming up in just a moment.
There is a genuine problem in this asylum system and we need someone to sort it out.
The Home Secretary has imposed an emergency brake on student visas from nations with high numbers of asylum applicants. Is Labour finally getting a grip on the exploitation of Britain's migration system?
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, I'd never heard of the guy until about 4 hours ago, but then I'd never heard of Sam Ryder. I'd never heard of Bucks Fizz before either. So who knows? I'm a bit disappointed because I thought this is the 70th Eurovision Song Contest. Why don't they send a big name, make it great glory? But they're taking a little bit of a gamble here. By all accounts, apparently the song, Scott Mills, the semi-final commentator, has said that it sounds a bit like sort of Human League meets the Pet Shop Boys.
And there's been some reporting that an unnamed act was axed from possibly representing Britain after some of the bosses involved found some unacceptable online comments. It does all point to the fact that this is going to be quite an incendiary, perhaps, edition of Eurovision in its 70th year. Plenty of countries are boycotting the event because, you know, despite being called Eurovision, we do get inputs from countries all over the world, including from Israel, which has caused a bit of a fracas in some corners, hasn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, I've always said from day one, I mean, this will be my 27th Eurovision Song Contest, so I've been all over the globe following this show. They should never bring politics into the Eurovision Song Contest. Greece have picked their song, and I'm very sorry for anybody from Greece who's listening, but it is absolutely terrible. Estonia have picked their song, and it is absolutely amazing. It's a four-piece girl band, a bit rocky, a bit like sort of Heart would be. And I love that song. It's going to go down well in the hall, but I don't think it's going to win. We've got Albania, who tends to churn out the same sort of Balkan-sounding music every year. That'll probably finish in the top 5.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, we've been talking about the Royal Navy and the mail mogs have come in. Philip says it's a total embarrassment. Naval chiefs and politicians should hang their heads in shame. Let's hope Dragon doesn't break down on the way there. Otherwise, we really will become the laughingstock of the world. Putin must be having a quiet chuckle at our attempts to put to sea. And Carol says the Navy is something people wouldn't mind paying more tax for, but successive Labour and Conservative governments siphoned off the money elsewhere. And Charles says, when you're openly embarrassed by the French, you've hit rock bottom. Well, thank you as always for those. But I hear that we have a special... Oh, no, I don't hear that we've got a special guest yet. We may have a special guest in a moment, our one and only friend Donald Trump. But in the meantime, I think we're going to be talking about Shabana Mahmood, because I wonder if she's proving to be Labour's migration redemption. The Home Secretary has imposed an emergency brake on student visas from 4 countries after a surge in migrants using study routes to claim asylum. 74% of Afghan student visa holders later claimed asylum. Nearly 40% of all asylum claims last year came from people who originally entered legally on visas. The exploitation of the system is costing taxpayers over £4 billion a year in asylum support. So is the start of Labour taking the migration crisis seriously, or is it too little too late? I'm joined by my panel, Reform's Zia Youssef and Labour's Kevin Craig. Zia, let me come to you first. This is pretty good, isn't it, that what Shabana Mahmood is saying is the sort of things that, frankly, the Tories should have been doing when we were in office?
What Labour is doing and what Shabana Mahmood is doing is taking the British people for mugs. So let's be clear that the student visa programme in this country is a scam on the British people, has been a scam for an insane amount of time, frankly, including under the Tories. And what she's announced is that she's going to be stopping people from 4 countries from doing... Those 4 countries make up 3,000 student visa applications last year. Do you know what the total number of student visas granted was last year? 400,000. So those 4 countries were 3,000. 3 times more from Bangladesh, that's not on the list. 10 times more from Pakistan, not on the list. 10 times more from Nigeria, not on the list. I mean, I could go on. So once again, what we're seeing now is in some ways it's worse than not doing anything about the problem. It's pretending you're doing something about the problem, assuming the British public are too ill-educated and just not paying attention. Well, I'm afraid they are paying attention because they're seeing this impact their day-to-day lives. And so I'm afraid what Shabana Mahmood is doing is going to have absolutely no impact whatsoever.
All right. The good news is, Kevin, our special guest, Donald Trump's pulled out of discussing this.
Has he?
Does Shabana Mahmood have any support in Labour for what she's doing? Because she got blamed for losing you the by-election last week.
Well, I was in Manchester. I'm sure Zia was as well. And the reason that didn't go well from our perspective is the awful campaign waged by the Green Party. But that's another topic. But she's got lots of support in Labour seats. For this, we recognise that this is a
Labour seats north of Watford, not much.
No, she does. There's lots of MPs in the east of England, London, South East, who know that we have to. It's a priority for the British people. It wasn't one of the missions, but it's a top 6 issue, and it's not. It's within Labour values to want to tackle this, and I'm really pleased. And she has, just to respond to something Zia said, she has said very clearly, one of her advisors in the Times today, that we will not hesitate to extend the measure to other countries if similar trends are identified.
But she has hesitated, hasn't she?
If similar trends are identified, this scam has been running for years. There were 400,000. There's no new data that is going to come through that is going to make her change her views on these things. And that's what I think is so pernicious. And listen, it's not just this. It's obviously, she's obviously gone to Denmark and talking about what Denmark has done. I mean, listen, Denmark's done a reasonable job relative to where they were, but the notion that it's comparable, the scale of the problem is totally different. Our population is north of 10 times bigger. The number of asylum claims 10 times bigger than it was at the start of the problem for Denmark. Our judiciary is frankly much more ideologically captured.
What's the evidence?
Shabana Mahmood cannot stop the boat without, and by the way, deport people who are already here illegally, without leaving the ECHR, without disapplying a whole host of international treaties for which there will be no appetite amongst Keir Starmer or the Labour backbenchers, or by building lots of detention capacity, and by embarking on an enormous, large-scale mass deportation programme. What she's doing, as I said, is creating a superficial set of policies that are going to make no difference to the underlying problem.
Well, can I just ask you a question? You said that the British judiciary is ideologically captured. What do you mean by that?
Well, there are a whole host of decisions that have been made by judges to keep people who have committed some, and I've talked about some of this. I talked about it in my speech early last week. So, there was a case of a little girl called Amy who was knocked down and killed in a hit and run by a man who was in this country illegally. And this was actually when David Cameron was Prime Minister. It was a long, long time ago.
Right.
And he successfully fought his deportation from this country as a result of his lawyers making a case under Article 8 of the ECHR.
Yeah.
I have looked through examples of where the ECHR has been used, and in my view, weaponized to basically subordinate the rights, for example, of Danish people relative to not just foreign nationals, but foreign nationals who've committed some of the most depraved and horrific crimes. I can see far less evidence of it than I can in the UK. And it is the job of legislators to ensure that it is their people who are ultimately, whose rights are held up as being the most important rights in that particular country. And so there is no way, and I've actually said this to Shabana Mahmood's face, by the way, there is no way she's going to be able to, A, stop the boats from coming, let alone deport people already in this country illegally at any sensible scale without leaving the ECHR, for which there is absolutely no appetite inside the Labour Party.
Okay, so, well, there is. And so... No. There's appetite to stop the boats.
President's right on this. You can't do it without leaving the ECHR.
Well, that's your opinion and that's Zia's opinion, and you both are cut from the same cloth in that. But Labour has been already making a difference. We've only been here a year and a half, the Labour government, and there are things that are different in terms of boat crossing stop, hotel use, statistics and data.
Tell you what's different. More have arrived illegally under Starmer than any other Prime Minister.
And then there's a sweeping assertion that the judiciary, which is independent, has been ideologically captured, which is very contestable. And ultimately, the difference is it's a choice. Do you want to choose Reform, who want to, as part of their policy, kick out parents of people here on indefinite leave to remain? Now, there are people who have been here a long time working in public services, and it looks like your policy is to kick them out. Some of them have British children who were born here. We want to really tackle immigration, illegal immigration, because we know it's a problem, but there's a humane and fair way of doing it, which doesn't seem to be what you're putting forward.
Do you think it's humane and fair on the British people? I mean, you talked about how Labour has made a difference to the boat crossing. I'll concede that point and accept that point graciously. More illegal migrants have turned up on our beaches uninvited under Keir Starmer than any other Prime Minister. So, number one, congratulations on that.
We recognise that's
Thousands have arrived already this year. The day Shabana Mahmood announced great, Denmark-inspired changes, hundreds more showed up. I mark my words, over the coming days, as a result of the more clement weather, we're going to see a lot more arriving. We are being laughed at. The Telegraph had a piece where they literally went to the beaches and they were asking the people who were making the journey what they thought of Shabana Mahmood. One of them, there's a little kid, a little toddler, put two fingers up at the camera. I'm afraid these people are laughing at Labour. Right. They are laughing at the Labour government, and the British people are the ones who are going to suffer as a result of it.
You're ignoring the fact that there's been progress made.
Progress made, according to a progressive. Anyway, thank you to my panel. Coming up in just a moment.
Any government that has high taxation is giving itself more powers and the people less.
The fiscal event phenomenon strikes again. Rachel Reeves lauded optimistic forecasts in yesterday's spring statement, but today the figures show Britain is heading for the highest tax burden in history. As the late and very great Baroness Thatcher said, a problem with socialism is eventually run out of other people's money.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. Storm Regina's bringing further unsettled weather to parts of Spain throughout this week. It's also fairly unsettled in the Canary Islands. Risk of rain for Tenerife throughout much of this week. But here's Storm Regina bringing heavy bursts of rain to eastern areas of Spain through Wednesday and Thursday. It does look to remain unsettled here into the weekend too. But for the Mediterranean, plenty of clear sunshine. It's quite warm here as well into the weekend. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Clear spells overnight for England and Wales, and we keep some sunshine in places during the day on Thursday, but tending to turn cloudier towards the north and the west as a weak weather front moves in, and that's going to turn things increasingly damp across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland overnight. We've already got the thicker cloud and we've already got a few spots of rain, but the cloud will thicken and lower further, with those outbreaks of rain tending to be most persistent across western parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland as well. Spots of rain ahead of that, and we'll see a thickening of the cloud for West Wales and the far west of England. To the east, the Midlands, East Anglia and the south east start the day with a chill in the air, a few mist and fog patches. But once those mist patches lift, plenty of sunshine once again through a large swathe of the Midlands, East Anglia and the south east. Wales and the south west tending to see patchy cloud first thing, turning thicker through the morning and early afternoon. Northern England, patchy cloud here as well, some bright spells sneaking through. Eastern Scotland mostly dry, but Western Scotland a damp start, breezy with it as well. Northern Ireland also tending to see rain first thing, mostly light but some moderate bursts as well. Now the rain peels away from Western Scotland, a few showers following, and also a colder feel as the front slowly edges its way east and southeast. Rain appearing into West Wales and Cornwall by the afternoon, but ahead of that, 18, possibly 19 Celsius for the Midlands and the southeast. A cloudier day to come on Friday as this weather front lingers across many parts of England, Wales, eastern Scotland. Still some sunshine in the southeast, not feeling quite as warm. Certainly not feeling as warm for Scotland and Northern Ireland, although sunshine does tend to return. Into Saturday and Sunday, we've got that lingering cloud across many areas, but it will be mostly dry.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The physical event phenomenon has struck again. Yesterday, Rachel Reeves used her statement to insist her economic plan is working. As growth forecasts have been downgraded to a measly 1.1%, unemployment is expected to rise to around 5.3%, and today it emerged that the UK tax burden is projected to hit a record high of 38.5% of GDP by 2030. Is she telling the truth? Government spending plans relying on rising tax receipts and strong stock markets. But economists warn even a modest market change could sabotage Reeves's plans. As Baroness Thatcher said,
and socialist governments traditionally do make a financial mess. They always run out of other people's money. It's quite a characteristic of them.
Well, I'm joined now by the former economic advisor to Baroness Thatcher, the one and only Patrick Minford. Patrick, thank you very much for joining me. What did you make of yesterday's statement and this issue of the tax burden being about to hit 38.5% of GDP?
Well, we're in a terrible situation, aren't we, where Labour have ramped up taxes, particularly on entrepreneurs, and the bringing in of this inheritance tax on farms and businesses has been disastrous, adding on to the fact that top rates are up at over 45%, and in some cases much higher than marginal rates. And generally, we're in a situation where business is in despair, really, and particularly smaller entrepreneurial classes of smaller businesses are being treated dreadfully by this government. And it's not surprising we face a future of no growth at all, really.
And how did we get growth in the past? Because we used to have growth of 2.5% to 3%. a year, and we used to have increases in productivity. Neither of these seems to be happening at the moment. Do you have a sort of reason for why this is? Is there a structural reason, or is it government policy?
It's government policy, fundamentally. We saw under Mrs. Thatcher the way in which we restored growth after the dreadful 70s by cutting top rates of tax and bringing down the tax burden generally. And that led to a big speed up in growth, as you say, productivity growing and growth settling at over 2%, and we overtook France and Germany in per capita income. All these things happened as a result of the Thatcher reforms to tax and of course regulation, all the union laws, and all that's been reversed since by weak Conservative governments, and now this disastrous Labour government that is putting the lid on it all. I mean, it's quite appalling watching it.
And Margaret Thatcher also emphasised spending restraint. Is it realistic in a modern democracy to restrain spending on welfare and health, or are those things that governments just have to pay for or risk losing elections?
Well, Mrs. Thatcher brought in a benefit system to help those who were willing to work. And, you know, if you were in work, you were better off with the result of having benefits that brought you above poverty levels and so forth. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it got people back into work. It helped to get people back into work. And that's all good. But it is possible to keep it under control. The trouble is it all went south after COVID, when people got used to these huge handouts, and getting people back into the habit of working has been very hard. And of course, this government have given up on it altogether, which is most disappointing, because you'd have thought that Labour could have applied tough love, you know, to keep the benefit system under control. But it's spiralling out of control because of their unwillingness to administer tough love, which is what Mrs. Thatcher did.
All right, Patrick, thank you very much indeed for joining me. My panel is still with me. Kevin, taxes are too high, welfare spending is too high, economic growth is anemic, it's been revised down by the ABR, and the statement was given in the background of what's happening in Iran, which may blow all the estimates out of the water anyway.
Yeah, but it might do. But Rachel Reeves, as a Labour Chancellor, had a good statement yesterday. And Patrick, who's still obviously an arch-Thatcherite, probably like your good self, didn't mention inflation's coming down, didn't mention wages are going up, didn't mention that interest rates are down, didn't mention that mortgage costs are going down. And there are many things to be positive about. It is a slow turnaround, and of course we want higher growth. But the picture, which is taking out one stat, which is tax versus GDP, where we are roughly, by the way, in the middle of OECD countries, is a misleading picture. And Labour likes profits. Labour likes businessmen and women. Labour likes the money that they make.
Not very good at showing this, though, is it?
Well, Labour is. You look at JP Morgan bringing in a ton of money into big major campuses such as Bournemouth. Labour knows without business and profits, you can't turn this country around. And slowly,
Kevin,
slowly
you are
it's
the
happening.
only Labour man who ever says that. Perhaps because you're the one successful businessman who supports Labour.
There's
no Labour business experience in the government, is there, in the Cabinet?
Have you met Jason Stockwood?
He's not in the Cabinet?
No, not in the Cabinet.
Well,
you met him in the Treasury team. So I didn't hear you. So you caught me out there. I didn't hear you. Right.
Brings earrings. I'm afraid I'm a bit worried about Reform's economic policy, because it seems to me you've joined the blob, and that Robert Jenrick's speech a couple of weeks ago could have been given by Rachel Reeves a couple of years ago.
Well,
we like the ABR and Bank of England independence.
Let's cover off a few things, right? So earlier in the show, you had a gentleman talking about, quite rightly, to our embarrassment as a country, His Majesty's Royal Navy is incapable of projecting power with the Navy right now, and can't get a destroyer out to where it needs to be on any sensible time frame. I'll tell you why that is because this country currently spends 5 times more almost 5 times more on welfare than it does on defence. That's it. That's the simple reason. I mean, we can navel-gaze all we want, Jacob, but that's it. And that's not just this Labour government, although Labour's doing absolutely nothing to assist with the problem. It's been going on for decades, and particularly under the Tories. So we absolutely need to spend more on defence. And it's not just measuring that as a percentage of GDP, by the way, because that says nothing about the fact that GDP is not growing. I mean, once again, we had the OBR forecast just yesterday, basically saying, downgrading this year's forecast, saying next year will be better. The British people have had enough of that. So in terms of what Robert said in his speech, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to dramatically cut welfare spending. We've already outlined $9 billion a year of cuts.
OK, but Reeves said she'd cut welfare spending and then didn't, and $9 billion is a drop in the ocean compared to whatever it is.
$9 billion. So $9 billion is just on the PIP line. There's a host of other cuts that we're going to make. And here's the reason why Rachel Reeves was unable to cut it, is because there is no appetite to do that. It is not in the DNA of Labour to ever cut it. I will tell you what, if we are successful and we have 350 to 400 Reform MPs in the next Parliament, those will be turquoise-blooded Reform MPs who will absolutely see to it that we ensure we get the spending under control.
On the ABR, and you're running the economy according to what the ABR is forecasting, their forecasts are dependent on mass migration. You take mass migration out, which both you and I want to see cut, their forecasts come down.
So, Jacob, you know as well as I do that the notion that the government has no ability to ensure that forecasts are done properly. I mean, so Robert spent probably about 5 minutes of his speech talking specifically about how appalling the OBR has been in terms of getting its forecast right. If we were to be the only government that did not have the OBR score anything, albeit we're going to make a lot of changes to that, then we'd be the only government in living memory other than Liz Truss to have done that. And while there are a lot of things inside Liz Truss's budget that we might like, both of us, the reality is we all know what ended up happening. All right. We've got to be smart about this, Jacob.
OK, thank you very much, my panelists. Coming up in just a moment.
I hereby declare that Hannah Catherine Spencer is duly elected Member of Parliament for the Gorton and Denton constituency.
A bombshell new poll has put the Green Party ahead of Labour for the first time as the Conservatives continue to trail behind Reform. Is the traditional party landscape experience a fundamental change, or is this just mid-term protest voting?
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is you're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Is Britain's traditional two-party system changing for good? A new YouGov poll has put the Green Party ahead of Labour for the first time following its victory in Gorton and Denton, with Reform still leading the Conservatives by 7 points. The Greens is now the most popular party amongst voters under 50, with nearly half of 18 to 24-year-olds saying they would vote Green, the youth vote having been in Labour's hands for many years. So is this just mid-term protest voting akin to UKIP's European election victories, or the start of a fundamental shift in British politics? I'm glad my panel is still with me. Kevin, from our point of view, the two of us quite like the two-party system. You were probably laughing as Reform took lots of votes from Conservative candidates last election. How worried are you about the Greens?
Yeah, I am worried, and I think that we, the Labour Party, we made a mistake in Manchester. We gave them an easy ride. I spent a number of days on the doorstep up there, and you could tell that things were not going in a particularly helpful direction. And I think we need to keep talking about the extreme nature of the proposition of the Green Party, and we need to do it in a way that engages young people. You know, they're dangerous. They don't believe in NATO. They don't believe in business. They don't believe in aspiration. I get the sense at times they don't even like this country that they aspire to govern, presumably. And I think they've had an easy ride today. And I think that the Green proposition, when I see what their deputy leader thinks about some of the events that happened in the Middle East and the way that he talks about things. And I think this is the same Green Party that seems to be doing well in Suffolk, and I'm not sure people understand that.
But aren't these people supporting the Green Party people who were in the Labour Party when Jeremy Corbyn was in charge, that they have views that aren't a million miles from him, concern about NATO and so on, and that both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party used to be much broader churches, and they seem to have lost part of their congregation?
Well, Labour does have to remain a broad church, and I think the Prime Minister at the moment is making some real efforts to rebuild that after recent turbulence. But I think a lot of Corbynites did go to the Greens, and I'm not even sure now what the difference between your party and the Green Party is, actually, but I think all of them, we have to keep trying to deliver and remind people of why they trusted us in the first place, because otherwise polls like this will become, more common and more serious.
So Reform was up in the 30s not so long ago. It's now consistently polling in the 20s. Is there an extent to which you have peaked and that the insurgent element of Reform's been taken over by the Greens?
Well, we went through a period of pretty meteoric rises in the polls, and people have said, I can go through a whole host of people who said Nigel Farage's party's peak at 14% and then Reform peaked at 20% and then we peaked at 25 and 30, right? Inevitably, nothing goes up in a straight line. I will say this, that YouGov poll, massive outlier in terms, just objectively speaking, in terms of Reform. So if you look at Salvation had us at 30% in the last week. More in Common just printed 29% for Reform. And Freshwater just put Reform at 29% too. So yes, we have, that meteoric rise has paused for a little while. I think, it's really important to make, there are two really important points I would make. Number one, it is actually unprecedented for all of the weapons of political war of an incumbent government and the, quote, official opposition to be pointed at a new insurgent party with that much of a lead. We've led 250 polls in a row. Now, we're not complacent and we take nothing for granted, but if you look at a place like Gorton and Denton, just being totally objective here, if you rank ordered the swing required relative to the last general election for Reform to win a seat, there are 491 seats in the country that are more winnable. So for us and Matt Goodwin to have delivered 28, almost 29% in that seat bodes extremely well for us in a general election.
I think the really interesting thing about Gorton and Denton, which has hardly been commented on, that in the 2019 election, assuming it had had those boundaries, Labour would have got 66%. Labour plus the Greens was exactly 66%. So there wasn't any great shift between wings of politics. And that seems to be true of the opinion polls, that Tory plus Reform, Labour plus Greens, etc., have been remarkably consistent. Isn't that why we have a duty on the right to come together? Because otherwise we will get Zach Polanski running the country.
But you have been coming together, and half of your... Sorry to interject, it's a really good point. And half of your former colleagues, the very people who messed up the country, the Jenricks and the Bravermans, are now part of Zia's bench. And one thing you don't know is that there is polling, which is not published, which shows the number of Tories being welcomed into reform is not going down well with a lot of people, and they attribute them as part of the problem from the past.
Well, so number one, I agree it is important that, you know, the right in this country do unite, and they should unite behind Nigel and come and join us at Reform, and that includes you and your good self there, Jacob. So that would be the first point. Look, we know. Look, Jacob, you know what happens in a coalition. You get nothing remotely helpful. We've got to get people behind what Reform believe in. We're making very clear what our plans are. Mass deportations, leaving the ECHR, law and order, significant increase in powers of stop and search. And we're putting our faith in the British people that they're going to want those things. If they choose not to want those things, they choose not to want those things. But I think we are at a critical time. I think the next general election is certainly the most important general election in my lifetime, which is why I'm doing this.
Do you think Kevin's point is right, that the defections from the Tory party have actually harmed you rather than helped you?
There's no evidence for that whatsoever, and I think so. If you look at the lead that Reform has had over the Conservative Party over the period of these defections, with each pollster, it has either stayed stable or it has increased. But I want to be crystal clear about why people like Robert and people like Swell have been welcomed into the party. And that was not some crude electoral calculation about the polls over the next few months. And this is like, I work with Nigel every single day. The reason it has happened is because we know that in order to defeat the blob, in order to get the things done that we want to do, we're going to need people who have some experience and can see us around.
We've got to move because we've got to go to the one and only Alex Armstrong, who is Patrick Christys' doppelganger for the Ayatollah. Alex, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Yes, we've got a massive show coming up for you. Students are flooding the capital this weekend, mourning the loss of the Ayatollah. Will millions or thousands of migrants from Iran be coming to Britain? And Katie Lamb MP is joining me to talk about grooming gangs. Big show up next.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Clear spells overnight for England and Wales, and we keep some sunshine in places during the day on Thursday, but tending to turn cloudier towards the north and the west as a weak weather front moves in, and that's going to turn things increasingly damp across parts of Northern Ireland and Western Scotland overnight. We've already got the thicker cloud and we've already got a few spots of rain, but the cloud will thicken and lower further, with those outbreaks of rain tending to be most persistent across western parts of Northern Ireland, Western Scotland as well. Spots of rain ahead of that, and we'll see a thickening of the cloud for West Wales and the far west of England. To the east, the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast start the day with a chill in the air, a few mist and fog patches. But once those mist patches lift, plenty of sunshine once again through a large swathe of the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast. Wales and the southwest tending to see patchy cloud first thing, turning thicker through the morning and early afternoon. Northern England, patchy cloud here as well, some bright spells sneaking through. Eastern Scotland mostly dry, but Western Scotland a damp start, breezy with it as well. Northern Ireland also tending to see rain first thing. Mostly light, but some moderate bursts as well. Now, the rain peels away from Western Scotland, a few showers following, and also a colder feel as the front slowly edges its way east and southeast. Rain appearing into West Wales and Cornwall by the afternoon, but ahead of that, 18, possibly 19 Celsius for the Midlands and the southeast. A cloudier day to come on Friday as this weather front lingers across many parts of England, Wales, eastern Scotland. Still some sunshine in the southeast, not feeling quite as warm. Certainly not feeling as warm for Scotland and Northern Ireland, although sunshine does tend to return. Into Saturday and Sunday, we've got that lingering cloud across many areas, but it will be mostly dry.
warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could be the proud owner of a brand new Benevan 122.